Hello everyone and welcome back to KSI Morning Brief. This is Mashood and joining with me today is Anjan and Imad to take you through the latest on world news and markets. To begin with, global markets. The Nasdaq 100 index futures fell as Donald Trump is preparing to sign an executive order that could threaten to penalize Facebook, Google and Twitter for the way they moderate content on their sites. The Dow Jones futures were little changed late Thursday along with S&P 500 futures. The coronavirus stock market rally erased strong gains as President Donald Trump said he planned a Friday news conference on China as tensions rise. The Dow Jones was down by 0.58%, the S&P 500 was down by 0.21%, and the Nasdaq was down by 0.46%. Looking at Europe, analysts at Spreadex states, even with the Dow Jones losing some of its swagger, the European indices clung fiercely to their optimistic rally on Thursday. For the FTSE, it had to overcome the heavy losses incurred by Standard Chartered and HSBC, which fell on the China-Hong Kong developments. That did not stop the UK from climbing, briefly sauntering past 6,225 points for the first time since early March. The FTSE 100 was up by 1.21%, the DAX was up by 1.06%, the CAC 40 was up by 1.76%. Looking at Asia, Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index is struggling to partake in the global equity rally as on Thursday, considering the uncertainties that are now engulfing the city. Until investor sentiments can be restored with the dispelling of such uncertainties, the Hang Seng Index is expected to have a tough time seeing a meaningful recovery. Meanwhile, in China, its shares ended firm on Thursday as investors anticipated further policy support from the ongoing Chinese parliamentary meeting. The Nikkei was down by 0.14%, the Hang Seng was down by 0.72%, and the Shanghai Composite was up by 0.33%. Looking at the United States, the investment-grade corporate debt sales surpassed $1 trillion for the year to date as of yesterday, according to a Bloomberg analysis. It's the quickest pace that corporate bond markets hit this milestone in a calendar year. Companies across all industries have issued bond offerings this year to show up their balance sheets as the pandemic wiped out consumer demand. It took until November for the investment-grade corporate bond market to hit the $1 trillion mark last year. The record clip of corporate debt sales came as the Federal Reserve unleashed a series of new stimulus measures aimed at bringing liquidity to capital markets. Next on global news, we have Anjana to bring you some latest updates.
Thank you, Mashood. So looking at global news, 18 million people in US who are attached to small businesses are at a risk of permanent job loss. American small businesses are going to bear the brunt of COVID-19 crisis as they employ 47% of the entire US workforce. Almost two-thirds of US small business employment is concentrated in just 6 types of companies, namely healthcare and social services, accommodation and food services, retail trade, construction, professional scientific and technical services, and manufacturing. In terms of overall US labor market trends, small business employment in these 6 sectors is responsible for 30% of American jobs. So these are the industries to watch in the coming months as the country reopens. Looking at more news from America, the Trump officials plan to restrict H-1B visas, the same type of visa that the founder of SpaceX, Elon Musk, used to begin working in the United States. An H-1B visa is typically the only practical way for a foreign national to work long-term in the United States. Looking at Asia, tension between China and India over their Himalayan border have escalated, with China accused of moving thousands of troops into disputed territory and expanding a military airbase in the region. In response, the Indian Army has moved several battalions from an infantry division used based in the Ladakh city. More news from India. The world's biggest lockdown to push 12 million into extreme poverty, according to latest reports. 122 million Indians were forced out of jobs last month alone, according to the estimates from the Center of Monitoring Indian Economy. Daily wage workers and those employed by small businesses have taken the worst hit. These include hawkers, roadside vendors, workers in the construction industry, and many who eke out a living by pushing handcarts and rickshaws. Looking at Malaysia, Malaysian former Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad has been sacked by the political party he co-founded after sitting an opposition bench during the May 18 parliamentary session. Mahathir Mohamad is now nearly 95 years old and was considered to be the world's oldest government leader until he unexpectedly quit the February, sparking a frantic week-long power struggle. So that's it from global news. Imad on the other side will bring you COVID-19 updates. Imad?
Thank you, Anjana. The total cases globally surpassed over 5.8 million, with new cases over 100,000, with recoveries over 2.5 million and over 358,000 fatalities. Looking at Sri Lanka, the total cases are at 1,530, new cases of 34, recoveries of 745, and 10 fatalities. Moving on to the developments of vaccine, the European governments have moved to halt the use of anti-malarial drug hydrochloroquine. This comes after a month after Trump promoted the vaccine. In other news, GSK to produce 1 billion doses of adjuvant vaccine boosters in 2021. The UK drug maker will expand production of vaccine efficacy boosters or adjuvants to produce the 1 billion doses in 2021 for use in shots for COVID-19 vaccine. In other news, Moderna Inc., after successful report last week on its vaccine development, hit a roadblock this week after one of the volunteers reported they fell ill after the second round of trials. For the development of vaccine, Novavax Inc. has bought a manufacturing plant from privately held Serum Institute of India. The US company has bought Czech Republic-based Praha Vaccine, a unit of India's Cyrus Poonawalla Group, which owns Serum Institute for $167 million. Meanwhile, Dr. Anthony Fauci, director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, told CNN in an interview that there is a good chance a vaccine might be deployable by November or December. Further on developments of vaccine, in India, medical pharmaceutical startup Minvax is developing an indigenous vaccine and expects it to be ready in about 18 months. The vaccine being developed by the startup incubated at the Indian Institute of Science, Bengaluru, involves using a protein-based vaccine. In other news, after collaborating on COVID-19 vaccine with the Indian Council of Medical Research, Bharat Biotech International Limited has already begun the testing phase of another vaccine. This will be named as Coroflu. On worldwide updates, the cases of community transmission of the coronavirus are growing in Africa, particularly in Ethiopia, and a new strategy for testing is needed to prevent this, says the Center for Disease Africa. In other reports suggesting that the COVID-19 may never go away even with a vaccine. Even after a COVID-19 vaccine is developed and deployed, the virus will likely remain for years and may eventually become an endemic like HIV, measles, and chickenpox. On further news, the UK has suffered the highest death rate from the coronavirus among the most affected countries with comparable tracking data, according to Financial Times research. That's it for today's updates. Join us again at 8:30 tomorrow for more updates. Thanks for joining us. Stay safe, take care, and goodbye.